Cannot hear you. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Really quietly, but yeah.
Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, good. All right, I started the live button. Perfect. Updated the tile. All right.
You want me to monitor YouTube or?
I have the thing here,
Okay.
Restream on, so I can quickly check if everything is working. Hey, Ace.
Hola. Am I audible?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey, look at you. Lukasz, you here?
Yeah, just had really tasty
Why
burger. Of course, a vegetarian burger.
You're just trying not to die.
Are you trying to make us jealous or something? I mean, you know that we love food, so why is it telling us about food?
Like, really?
Like, really, like, does it make sense? Hi, Georgie.
Hello, how are you?
Hey there.
Hi.
I'm perfect. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. It's lovely to be invited to this call.
Oh, nice.
Thank you so much for
Lukasz,
joining.
Suli, I guess I have to put on my best behavior.
Yes.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
try.
You
thank you.
don't have to do
Just
that for me.
try.
Nice.
But I
Welcome,
wonder
Georgie.
how long it will last.
If it's anything like some of the people that I work with, it's probably not a very long time. Everybody's got that naughty, part of them, haven't they? Otherwise, life wouldn't be fun. So, what can you say?
True.
Yeah, thanks so
All
much
right.
for inviting me and having me today, though.
Thank you so much for coming. I think we can get started, right? Whoever joins can join us, and yeah, then we'll catch up. All right. Hi everyone. In case you are watching on YouTube, welcome. So today is our bi-weekly conference community call. Today I have Georgia, I have Lucas, I have Ace on the call. So we have a full house today. I'm happy. Yeah. So today, the main reason for the meeting is to discuss all things conference. So yeah, let's get right into it. So yeah, I have an agenda which I've written down so that I don't forget anything. So the first thing that we have is that Helsinki call for speakers will close today. So yeah, we received quite a number of applications. So yeah, after tomorrow or maybe after Easter, I will reach out to the speakers and start updating the conference. Start contacting the speakers by email. Then we will add the speakers to the conference website. So Ace, you got a work to do. Da 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 da. So also the next thing will be to also add like the London call for speaker link as well. So yeah, we get the ball rolling as well. Next thing is to contact also API days, like to get more information. So like the schedule template, how will the template look like for the agenda, then the tickets information, and also like the exact dates that Async API Conf will be hosted. So it's going to be a 2-day event. So I'll reach out to them after Easter, then to get all the information like when exactly is Async API is going to be the template for the agenda, then everything will be available as time goes on the website. So yeah, that will be all like for Helsinki. Any questions?
I do
Just
actually have oh, sorry, Lucas.
no,
Go
no,
ahead.
no. You first. You first.
I just wanted to know if you guys actually did Helsinki last year.
No, it's our
Oh,
first time this year.
okay.
Yeah.
So we did, and it's fantastic. It's such a great event. It's quite a small sort of close-knit community. There were still a lot of people there. But yeah, it's really, really great. So you'll really, really enjoy that one. And I hope you have some great speakers because so many people will be really interested in the async initiative.
That's fantastic.
Do you recall how many people were there last year?
I can tell you, but I don't have the number on the top of my head.
Okay.
But I'll let you know.
Okay. Do you remember do they have booth as well, like for sponsors?
Yes.
Valeria? Okay.
So Gravity are sponsoring this year as well.
Okay.
And I think we've done this one. I think this is our third year in Helsinki. Originally, it was just a virtual event, and they brought it in person last year, I think, or maybe the year before. All of the years tend to blend together these days. But yeah, originally it was virtual, and then it went hybrid, and now I think it's just in person, which is great because we see with conferences that so many people are wanting that face-to-face interaction these days. So it's definitely a positive thing.
Because the topic I wanted to mention is that I might be going as well to Helsinki, and I know others will also plan. So of course depends on the call for papers, but if we gather a nice group of contributors, then I was thinking that we'll have a decent number of people to actually do the booth again, like we did in Paris last year. So you can put on your list a task for me that I'll follow up with API days in the subject of the booth. Because then I'll have to also coordinate with other communities like OpenAPI and JSON Schema and others.
Okay, so are we taking the booth? Should I inquire about the booth? Or because I remember last time when we spoke, like we're still not yet sure.
So now I'm 100% sure that I can come. So I mean I didn't check the last list of people that applied for the conference. But so it all depends really on the outcome, like who we have on the list. But from what I remember, what I saw, there were people that are already very active in community. They know Async API a lot. So that makes me feel that we have a group big enough to support the booth and discussions during breaks, and also because the Async API day will be just conf will be just half of a day and just one day, right?
Yes.
So the other day we could still benefit from having a booth and having these discussions. Because in Paris it played very well. But of course it's all about details. So just if you can, then you please inquire. But then we of course need to, because I don't know, I didn't follow up with OpenAPI. I know that they have this more active now approach. They have actually two ambassadors, I think, who actively also participate in API days. So not sure if there's anyone actually going to Helsinki. If yes, then we can again have this joint booth, not just Async API. But yeah, that's, if you can just ask them like if they would give us a spot, because might be that they sold all the spots and they cannot give us for free the API specs. Yeah.
If there's nothing left for you, just let me know. I'm sure we'll be happy to share.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. So All right, I will inquire on this, on everything like we just spoke about. Then I will let you know. All right. All right, so the next thing is to open up the CFP for London. So speaking about London, today we have Georgie, right? So Georgie has something interesting for us for London, but not the London Comp that is happening in September, but something a bit earlier. So Georgie, would you like to share the details?
Yes, of course. So this is, and please excuse me because I don't have sort of all of the details just yet because I'm still trying to wrap things up. So Gravity are holding a meetup in May, and it will be held on Thursday, the 23rd of May. We've recently done a similar kind of thing actually in Denmark, which was a really, really great success. So similar to a kind of conference setup, but we allowed a lot more time for things like networking, and it was a much, much smaller scale. So we had about 40 people there. I think we had 4 talks in total. So Gravity's CTO, Linus Hackinson, spoke with Jonas from Async API. And then we had some customers speak and a partner as well. So we were 4 talks in total, which was great because it obviously helped everybody keep engaged. And we had loads of time to network as well. And that actually was super valuable because you find sometimes that at big conferences, trade shows, that people are all wanting to go to the presentations, and sometimes you don't get too much sort of traffic on your stand, and it's very limited. In the breaks, it's kind of awkward because you have people eating, drinking their coffee, and catching up on calls and things like that. So we decided to kind of look at things in a slightly different way, keep the event quite exclusive, and introduce more sort of async. Obviously, async is massive for us at Gravity, and introduce a sort of async tangent to it, really, to keep up that sort of interest there. So it will be probably a whole day event. We'll maybe start sort of 11, 12 o'clock. Actually, so by the time people manage to kind of commute into London and travel from elsewhere if they need to, we'll start with a kind of welcome, have some lunch together, and then we'll go into a couple of presentations then, having breaks to network in between. And then we'll kind of wrap the event up with some nice beverages and refreshments. Hopefully, if the weather's nice in London, somewhere on a rooftop. But we can't promise what the weather's going to be like, of course. So yeah, I've got great sort of aspirations for this event. Especially after the success we had in Copenhagen recently. So that's pretty much all the detail I have now. I have a couple of venues who will be coming back to me soon with some sort of finer details, really. But it will be Central London, 23rd of May, which is a Thursday. And yeah, we should get about 40 people there. We could go a bit more if we wanted to, but the goal is to keep, the kind of quality and the interaction really, really great. If you have any questions, please let me know.
So my question, so any presence of async API is great, but then it all comes into details, of course.
Yeah.
So what would you expect from the async API community? Just something that you had in Copenhagen, that it's your meetup, but then just somebody comes from async API and talks. And
I sort of spoke briefly with Tuli about this earlier, and we could even make it some sort of like Gravity and async meetup, where Gravity, I essentially kind of organize everything, but we make it completely co-branded. Is a little bit more kind of work on my side, but I feel like if that's going to help you and also help us, that could be a kind of really nice way to look at it. Depending, of course, on how you all feel about that. But I think it could be quite positive.
Yeah, because it's all about, in the end, we're part of Linux Foundation, and we have to be as vendor neutral as possible, as you can imagine.
Yeah, of course.
So then that's why I'm asking about details, because we need to make sure that like no other sponsors will
We do it correctly.
will
Yeah.
see a conflict with it. That's why last year when we were doing this kind of conference meetups at IBM office or don't remember the name of the company, shame on me. C-Native, S-Native from, don't remember, Madrid, or we did it
Matter
in
singular.
singular, yeah, singular, sorry.
We got that.
Then we also had the one at Postman office, but it was Async API on tour, right? It was
Yeah.
like branded
Okay.
Async API on tour. And that was a requirement because then we can really make sure it's like the branding is vendor neutral.
Yeah, of course. That's something we'd have to kind of discuss, I think, to make sure it's right.
Yes. So that's one of the, I would say, the main things, because then
Yeah,
also
definitely.
the other thing is sponsors. So let's say if Async API, let's say we have this happy path and you agree that it's going to be branded Async API on Conventor. But then let's say we have some sponsor, let's say even your competition becomes also a sponsor of Async API on tour. Then what we promise the sponsors is that we mention them on every tour, especially if they become platinum, of course. Then you'll have to take it into account that it might happen. Not necessarily it's going to happen because it's short term. We don't have yet sponsors onboarded, but might happen that, yeah, like competition would expect that we show the logo.
To be honest, I mean, obviously with things like, we'll just take Happy Days, for example. Happy Days also have people who could be considered competitors of Gravity. Sometimes they're sort of direct competitors, sometimes they're slightly indirect competitors, of course. And I think that we kind of have to look at things that way and almost accept it as Gravity. That, you know, other people, there are sort of plenty more fish in the sea, so to speak. And I don't think that should be a major concern for anybody. At the end of the day, it's brand awareness for all of these different companies, including the Async API initiative. So that's sort of my view on things, if you like, which is quite fair, really, because I'm not sort of one to be like, I want to push Gravity and I just want to push Gravity. Like, yes, you guys need to get involved with other people in this sort of world as well, and you need to push different things. And at the end of the day, if you know, Gravity gets recommended for a certain project because Gravity can do XYZ better than a certain competitor, that's great. But it also could be the other way around. It totally depends on what solution they're trying to find, of course, and we have to accept that. It's, you know, it's part and parcel of the world that we live in.
Yeah, and I think it's a healthy approach to accept that, basically, because
Thank you.
unless you're dealing like Google and AWS, not sure if you know the what they did to each other with reInvent and the whole sphere hiring, etc. But yeah, it's much larger and not healthy competition then.
No.
Yeah, so that would be like from my side the only concern, the vendor neutrality. So if it comes to have a presentation that we call sponsor presentation, that would be still fine. We didn't do it last year, but it's because we did it for the first time, so we didn't know really how to do it properly. And sponsor talks, it's normal across the industry. So I think, not sure, Tuli, what do you think? But I think the only thing would be this, like making sure that vendor neutrality is kept. And in the end, oh yeah, continue.
Oh no, you can finish up.
No, continue, because I wanted to change the topic.
Oh, okay. All right. No, I was just saying, as long as like it's branded like Gravity and Async API, and it's like playing like there on public is fine.
Yeah.
I think. but we just need to like on the get-go, we know that okay, we have an event with Gravity, it's a joint event, and the sponsors, everybody knows from the get-go what is vendor neutral, like what Lucas is
Yeah.
saying, then it should be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'll check everything with you anyway for each sort of step of the way because I don't want to. I like to be sort of quite transparent with my communication anyway. If we're making anything or creating any adverts or something to sort of help promote this, I want you guys to know exactly what's on them, and to even sort of guide when it comes to things like the wording of them and things like that as well.
And there's also might be an option for you. It really depends on your internals, but there's one company, one of the sponsors that I know is interested also in doing Async API meetup, but they are more interested in doing it as a consortium of
Okay.
three companies. So maybe you'd like me to put you in touch with them later
Very
on.
much
I
so.
can in DM, of course, I'm gonna mention the name of the company. I'm not sure if they would like me to mention it publicly yet.
Sure.
So I'll mention to you, then you just let me know. I can put you in touch, but because maybe
Okay.
they will share costs of London, or maybe share costs of some other event in the future.
Okay.
Because I think like your meetups are good, so they probably will
Thank you.
continue.
Yeah, I hope they do continue to be successful, but I'm really pleased with them so far. We've just had so much positivity come from them, which is just fantastic. So yeah, fingers crossed it continues like that, really.
All right, thank you so much, Georgie. So
Welcome.
we'll be in touch in DM, then I will let everybody know, the rest of the community know once everything is finalized. Then yeah, we'll take it from there.
Awesome. Thank you
All
so much.
right. Thank you. All right, so moving on. Speaking about meetups, so the folks at API Lagos open up their CFP. So they're now hosting their conference on the 13th of July, and they still want Async API to be part of the conference. So yeah, I just responded to them that we still don't have any sponsorship for the conferences yet, but yeah, once we do have sponsors, we might consider joining them out. So I don't know, or else Ace or either Ace or I can submit a CP and go and speak there. So that's the final what do you call it? Oh, that's the response that I gave them. Yeah. So that's what I had.
Can you
Mhm.
remind me the costs of if let's say we go there?
It's so mainly the cost is for catering and like live streaming. So it's plus minus 5,000 United States dollars. I can't remember. Yeah. Let me yeah.
So $5,000,
It's only 5,000.
and we would have our own truck.
Yes. So we'll have our own day, our own track. Of course, they are paying for the venue. It's only us paying for like swags, the maybe live streaming, the catering, then other nitty gritties. Yeah.
I mean, we know like we have this one potential sponsor in the pipeline that you and me, we know the name, but we should not mention it yet.
Mm-hmm.
But the others, it's complicated. It's complicated because this year I'm also doing like this much stronger push up for bringing sponsors to Async API. So whenever I talk to them, conference sponsorship, it's something additional, like additional cost. So obviously it's not doing well, not selling well, if it's done at the same time. Do you the folks from API conference, do they have some like Because they do it for the first time, right?
Yes, they're doing it for the first time. Yes.
Do they have any like estimates? Like do we know that they have connections that it's gonna be large event or the
Mhm.
like, so basically, like we did experiment last year a lot, and some events were big, some were small. All were beneficial, but in the end, we did not worry much about that. On one event, we have 200 people, and the other one, we have 20 people,
Mhm.
because we were not paying, basically, almost, we were paying just for swags. So that's my only concern with Lagos, like, because it's large investment for open source project, $5,000. It's a large investment.
Ace, are you there?
Or having a burger.
Oh God.
I was talking about food,
Because
and now
Ace, yeah, then you left. Now you left me without food.
No,
Okay.
no, I'm here. No, I'm here. I was just trying to convince the folks at API Conf if he can actually join the live stream.
Okay. It'll be nice to have them. Then maybe they
So
can
I'm just
answer the
trying.
questions that we have.
Yeah. So I just sent him a link. Um, hoping he will join.
like join
So let's
now.
just wait for like 2 minutes to see if he's gonna join.
Okay.
Join now,
All
yeah.
right.
He's here. He's the magician.
Oh, since when are you a magician? You said you were going to behave today.
Okay, okay.
I'm not complaining, but still. Hi, Debo.
All right, I think he's
Can
here.
you hear us? Yes.
Yeah, hi Tuli. Hi Lucas.
Hey, man.
How's it going?
Hi, Debo. Oh, all good, all good. So we were just talking about the API Lagos conference. To collaborate with Async API. So yeah, Lucas has some questions. Actually, we all have some questions. Like since the last time we spoke, like I mentioned that we still don't have like a budget for the conferences yet. So currently we are still sitting on the same conversation that we had last time. And yes, I feel like it's something that we can explore, like to have like an edition here in Africa and like an first API conf in Africa. So, but now we have like, is it going, how are the registration going? How have you done the marketing and what is the CFP response?
Okay, yeah, sure. So we put out registration on Monday. That was Monday evening. And the last I checked, which was about an hour or two ago, there were about 270 registrations so far for the conference. So I'm guessing the acceptance has been good because initially our plan is to have to host about 400 to 500 people. And if in the first 3 days, we're already getting close to 300 registrations, and the conference is still about 3 to 4 months away. It means that we are still in a good place right now. So we are hoping to amplify the registration because we've been reaching out to a couple of community groups. We also have like an internal team that we call the Falcon team. And essentially what they do is they're reaching out to developers at different organizations and companies and then extending invites to people who are working on those at those companies to either want to submit a CFP or to register to attend the conference. So we are sort of selling the value in which we are giving to them if they are coming to the conference to attend to them, and I'm encouraging them to apply, not necessarily to sponsor, but at least to attend, because we know that we're opening up the registrations for people to register organically, but we also want to put in efforts to get certain kinds of people to attend the conference. And in terms of CFPs, I think the last time I checked was yesterday morning. We had about 10 or 11 CFPs submitted already. We haven't reviewed any of them because we're still waiting for more people to submit so we could do the review at once. But we are hoping to get more people to submit CFPs. So far, we've had like people submit talks on a range of topics, different topics, and they've been looking really good so far. So I think that's where we currently are at in terms of like registration and CFPs. I'd say there's still opportunity to get more people involved, get more people to submit CFPs, because you know that if you have like more people submit, we are going to have like a diverse range of sessions that might be valuable to our audience to pick from. And we know that definitely there's going to be a churn in registration. If we have 1,000 people register, we might not get 500 people in attendance. So we're trying to push the registration as far as we can, because you know it's not if it's a paid conference, you know that churn would be minimal. But since the conference is free, we expect that there's going to be about 40 or 50% churn, because not everyone who registers will show up for the conference eventually. So we're trying to push the registrations as hard as we can, so that we are at a good number where we are confident that we're able to get the number of attendees that we are aiming at.
All right. And Lucas?
Like there's a lot of questions in my head that I would normally not have because of the investment that we have to do. Because again, like what I said before you joining, when we went last year to London, Madrid, Bangalore, and Paris, we had no costs, so we could really explore and see where is our community. If we're about like, and it's just my opinion, just to make sure it's not final word, but my opinion is that if we decide to make this $5,000 investment, then we have to put it up for the community to decide. And then if I would be in the community, I would first question like, why is it worth to invest? Do we have users there? Et cetera, et cetera. And for example, my first question is the only community that I know from that part of the world is contributors, which is a good community, but then the conference should always be a mix. So for us, whenever we were going to different locations, it was always a mix of some vendor presentations, some end user presentations, and always sometimes a community representative presentation. So my biggest doubt is like, is the location that we're talking about, Lagos, is if it's a location that Async API should go to, and how we can, and the question is how we can measure, how we can.
Okay. So in terms of Async API usage, I'll be honest, I do not know what the usage is like within the ecosystem here in Africa or within Lagos specifically. I think that would require some more research to know who's currently using Async API, how they're making use of it. But one thing I can tell you is that Lagos has the biggest developer community in Africa. It's the largest anywhere in Africa. And so the Docker community here is pretty vibrant, not just the community of developers, but also the startup ecosystem. So I could tell you that, well, I can't give like a precise number to how people are using things like Async API or developer toolings and stuff. But our primary goal for this year, really, as a community, is to elevate API literacy. And I also see an opportunity of enlightening the developer community on the importance of API specifications, and not necessarily API specifications, but about APIs generally, which API specifications, API governance, and stuff is included. So I don't have a specific number to async API usage. I could tell you that some of the technologies that or API architectures that async API supports are being used. A lot of people use stuff like GraphQL, WebSockets. Definitely developers use that. But if they use async API, the specification itself, I do not know what the usage rate is like.
Actually, we never tried it before. So we have this pretty visible banner that we can use on the website, right? So in theory, we could put up a banner, a question to the community with maybe a link to the form, to basically ask like whoever visits us in API, and we have a lot of visits, like basically a question like, would you be willing to go to Lagos for API conference in July? If for async API event, let's call it this way, in July, and then we would maybe have a form where we ask, so to have it specific, not just like, yeah, let's click, but have a form like, hey, if you like, basically, if you're interested, put your name and an email so we can contact with you, and maybe just in short words explain if you're, we can even have a bullet point list like, hey, are you end user, are you vendor, or your community member, like contributor, like, and explain like, hey, like, I think you should go, and I would be interested with submitting CFP actually, because for example, we have large office in Lagos with that we're doing, I don't know, fintech, and async APIs plays big role there. So for us, it would be pretty good indicator like, hey, like, we actually have community there, we should go.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Tuli, you're muted.
Okay, that makes sense. I was asking that Ace didn't you have a booth last year or something? How was the turnout as well?
Yeah, I mean,
Because I remember.
I participated along Bosman at DevFest, and I also like gave some talk at DevFest Port Harcourt last year. And yes, I can, when it comes to like the community that knows about using PPI, mostly the contributor aspect of the community. I mean, we have a lot of people, a lot of folks like that are aware of using PPI, and some actually use using API at their projects. But I can't actually give a number of people that are actually using this API in production or for most of their projects. But yeah, when it comes to contributors, like community folks, that's no, it's that I can testify. A lot of people like know about this API, the community, and um also like through Google season of docs. I think that's where like a lot of folks like came mostly across in KPI when Alejandra was like pushing for the first Google season of docs at KPI. Yeah, a lot of people like to know about KPI. So me talking about KPI at in some of these conferences wasn't new to most of them. The new aspect, right, is mostly how in-depth testing KPI is, right? Talking more about the specification and the toolings, and how they can actually use it at their work. And I think that's the new place. And I feel if we come to API Conf, or if we work with API Conf, it would really, really really enhance the experience of folks that I mean, we have a lot of fintech, right? We have a lot of companies and startups in Lagos, and we are going to have eventually we're going to have some of these folks come to API Conf, and I feel this could be the perfect opportunity to promote using KPI so they can also like use it in their various companies. I mean, we have contributors, we have an amazing community here already. But when it comes to like vendors, like companies using it, I think we are actually lacking in that aspect. I mean, OpenAPI is pretty popular here. I mean, a lot of people like to use OpenAPI, and yeah, we should. If it's left to me, I would support that.
Okay.
The only comment from my side would be if it's only to promote a potential new users, then I would say, do we need async API on tour? We can always just apply a speaker and have one presentation about async API to explain what async API is, to promote it. For me, what is important is to identify if we have already a basic usage, some vendor that is already using async API. Because the idea of async API on tour and in general, the investment in a bigger conference is to have a mix. I totally understand your point of view. And I am aware that we have contributors community in Nigeria. And last year when we went to Bangalore, we also knew that we have contributors community there. But we also knew that there are companies like Specmatic that invest in async API, and we knew that there will be also like end users vendors presenting. So we had a mixture, you know what I mean? We had a mixture of presentations by community and by vendors, and that ended up very well for us because one of the companies that presented in Bangalore is sponsoring one of our maintainers. That soon will be public information, and another one will end up pretty soon silver sponsor. So it, like the mixture was perfect because we could. Unfortunately, I couldn't go, but Tuli, for example, had this opportunity to not only meet with the community, but also with this business community, let's say. So that's what we're missing, this information, because I cannot pick up from my head. Like, for example, when Bangalore topic popped up, we already knew that there are folks from Postman that use async API internally. We knew Specmatic. So we didn't have to do any research. And that's why I'm talking about this banner and a kind of form that will like enable us to see. And then it's much better to convince anyone to spend this money if we can say, hey, we have community. There's a potential to educate new ones, but also we have existing like users and vendors that already use async API, so it will help us to also be there and meet with them. Does it make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, it makes sense. I have a suggestion. I don't know, Debo, are you going to have something like booths or something like that?
Yeah, so we were going to have booths at the main conference because initially what we discussed was it's going to be 2 days, whereas the first day would be async API on Thor, while the second day would be the main conference. So at the main conference, we're going to have booths. If we'll be going with this, if we want to explore the option of having a booth for async API, we could talk about that. But for the async API on Thor, what I had in mind was if we could reach out to people from OpenAPI and GraphQL and see if we could get a couple of people to attend from them, and maybe I have maybe one booth where we could have like API vendors or So people could like an API specification booth. So people could walk up to that booth to discuss with different representatives on different API specifications. So if you could have like something like that either at the main conference or at the async API on the that would be helpful. That was what I had at the back of my mind. We haven't like done any reaching out to any of these other people. We've only been speaking with async API so far.
From OpenAPI, you can talk to Eric Wilde and Chris Wood. I think it's not private information. They are async API, OpenAPI ambassadors, and they're actively working on having OpenAPI speakers at different events. So you can check with them definitely. It's Chris Wood and Eric Wilde.
Could you put the last name Chris Wood and in the chats? I didn't get that.
Yeah. I think it's Chris.
Okay, because what I was thinking, right? Maybe instead of having a big conference like this, yeah, maybe we can just do like maybe a booth, an experimental booth to see how the response will be. Then maybe we'll also have like speakers from Async API, like to really see. Then we can come up with like, hey, this is the information that we went to the Lagos conference. We've got this because, like you said, Lucas, we don't really know exactly, and Debo is their first time to have the API conf in Lagos, of which it will raise a lot of questions, like to say why are we going there and so forth and so forth. So I don't know. That's what I'm thinking. Instead of us going like fully like into the conference, why not like do a booth or give talks, like speak to people how they're adopting Async API and get like to know what are their needs. Like at least we can have like real feedback whenever we will decide next time to say, okay, we're now fully going for a full conference. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking.
You mean for the first year, for this year?
Yeah, for the first year. Mm-hmm.
That's one of the options, yeah.
Ace, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean that could work. But then we also have to consider what plans API Conf have. I mean, we shouldn't use like I mean we shouldn't like just focus on async API. Async API, we also have to like consider API Conf. So we have to like check if that is something they're also like willing to explore.
Yeah, so like so there are always two things. So like for example, we had Georgia from Gravity at the beginning of the call when she was talking about the meetup that they organize. So there are always two things about Async API. One is to just organize an event like meetup by your company or have a conference like API Conf in Lagos or whatever API conference, and then nobody's blocking anyone to attend and talk about Async API. It's because it's part of the API realm. The devil comes into details when it comes into the discussion for more official presence, right? Having Async API represented and as a sponsor, then it's much more complex, basically. Then it's community decision, not just individual decision. So, for example, when what I'm trying to say is that, for example, when Jonas was at the Gravity meetup in Copenhagen, it was Jonas just co-presenting as one of the TSC members at Async API and being there, talking to people about Async API on not Async API event, which is completely fine. If for example, our presence at API days, we did async API on tour on API days last year for the first time, but it doesn't mean we never been there. And before we've been there, there were people from async API community presenting async API on this conference, and also other conference like API Specs conference that was in San Francisco. So so that part is easy. API Conf, if we decide to not sponsor and in return not have async API on tour, if there's a place for topics related to async API, we should promote it and also have ask whoever is in our community to apply and go if they want, if they can, if they have budget. So that's not a problem. At least for me, I don't think for anyone it's not a problem, because you just go as a normal speaker. But then if it comes to sponsorship and in return having async API on tour, then it's completely different discussion. It's just more complex, and we just have to ask questions that we didn't ask last year. And with this year we don't do a research if we have community in Helsinki. We just go there because we have API Days hosting us for free and being a host sponsor. For us, it's like, come on, like we're going. It's free. Why wouldn't we? We can reach larger community. And same was last year with other locations. So just making it clear, we're not just picky about Lagos. It's just that it's different thing that we never did before. Basically, we never, and that's why actually I give you a backstory. Like that's why this whole idea of async API on tour, hosted by different people, came into the world. Because before we were doing async API conferences, but it was online, so not huge investment. And instead of investing in in-person conference, we decided to offer this on tour, hosted by, and this cooperation with API conference in Lagos. It's basically opening this discussion that we never had, like should we invest this money, even if it's not main money of the main initiative, but it's just money from the conference sponsors. We can still spend it on different things, like traveling of different people to API days to sponsor their travels. So that's just to make it clear. But then this, Tuli, you're not very open to this. You don't think it's good with this banner and form to try to do this kind
Yeah,
of
we can do it. Like we can
exploration?
get responses and see. We can do it. And hear what other people have to say. Like the decision does not lie with us; it lies with the community at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Do they feel like we should go to? These are just our own opinions, but like I said, the decision lies with the community to see if we should invest. Like when there is money involved, it's not only our decision. Yeah.
Even after meeting directly in general, you can put this update that there's a
Mhm.
discussion about API conference in Lagos that we would have to share sponsorship. But then do we have anyone in Lagos? Maybe there's already someone, and somebody will say like, hey, I'm from this startup from Lagos. We're using async API. Yeah, come in. Because we never asked, like the same with API days. You remember we had this discussion, like, should we go to
Mhm.
Melbourne? Should we explore
Mhm.
Australia? But
Mhm.
like, we don't know anyone. But the thing is that the fact that we don't know anyone, except of Sounter project from New Zealand, but the fact that we don't know anyone doesn't mean there's nobody. In the end, JSON schema describing async API spec, I yesterday checked, it was already downloaded 27 million times. So there are people around the world using async API. We just maybe have to check.
Mhm. Okay. Deborah, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of this makes a lot of sense. Because personally, as much as I want to this partnership with Async API to work, I also want to make sure it's the right investment for the community. Because in the end, it makes sense to do what's best for the community. And if I'm honest, I don't know what the vendor usage for Sync API is like in this ecosystem. I'm not going to go around spewing values that I know nothing about. So it makes sense to want to be certain that there are people who are really using the Sync API here before there's going to be a commitment to make that investment. That absolutely makes a lot of sense. So it's good to get some clarification and validation on what the usage is like before moving on. If the usage is low, definitely async API on Thor can't work because then there are contributors, there are people from the community, but from the vendor side, that's lacking. So it means that the investment would not um make as much impact as it would if you had like vendors who are here in this particular ecosystem. But then we don't know what we don't know, right? There might be companies using a sync API internally for their APIs, and we just don't know that they're using it. So it makes sense to just try to find out. And if there are a couple of people using it, then we can have like a further discussion. Uh, but really, that doesn't stop anything from happening. I mean, if async API on Thor is not going to happen, since our goal is primarily to promote API literacy, I also see that as an opportunity for us to educate the community on the importance of async API specifically. And if you could get like someone to come down and talk about Async API, do some promotions, try to get people to talk to the right people at some of these organizations on the importance of Async API, that would be very helpful as well. So even if Async API on Thor uh, doesn't work out, I believe that we could still have Async API well represented at the conference. And not just Async API, I'm going to reach out to Eric and Chris, like Lucas suggested. If you could have representation from OpenAPI and perhaps GraphQL as well, that would be awesome. We could consider perhaps having an API specification booth where people from different API specifications are present, and we have people from the community go to interact with them, ask questions. We could consider speaking to some API vendors that use some of the specifications internally at the organizations and whatnot. So I believe it's going to be a win-win either ways, right? If Async API works, it's a huge win. If it doesn't, if you're able to get a representative from Async API as well, that's also a huge win because then we get an opportunity to educate the developer community here about the importance of API specifications in general, not just Async API. Most important thing is the impact. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so I will do the form on the, then we put a banner on the website and on Slack and see how people respond to it. Then we'll take it from there. All right, I think time is up. So thank you so much for every table. Thank you so much for joining us, Georgie. Thank you so much. And everyone watching on YouTube. See you again in 2 weeks' time. Yeah. I I had a task to do which I didn't do. Thank God time ran out before we discussed it. So yeah. Anyways, see you next 2 weeks on Wednesday, same time, as we discuss more in depth about conferences, and we'll also have maybe an update on what we spoke about today for the meetup in London and for the conference in Lagos as well. So thank you so much, Lucas, Ace, Debo, for joining me today, and see you in Slack.
Yeah,
Bye.
thanks everyone.
Thank
Bye
you.
everyone.